All right, welcome back. It is a Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, sitting next to my guy, Philip
Lewis.
See what I did there?
Yep. And if you're watching this, we're out of YouTube jail.
We're out of YouTube jail. If you're not watching this,
We're still in it.
we're still in YouTube jail. Thanks to Philip.
Yeah.
On today's show, we are going to talk about humility and why it's so important, why it's been something that I've sought out in every part of my life, and I don't know why. We'll get into that. I don't know what caused that to be something that I looked for, but we'll walk through that. And before we started, one of the reasons I like Philip so much is I think he's a very humble person.
Do you really?
I do. I walked in here today, and he's got a new setup in here. It's a new setup. Now, granted, it still doesn't show William Wallace. My
It's about 80%
my brave
showing.
heart. It is showing.
Yeah, a little bit of
Okay.
it showing, yeah.
But he's, he was very concerned. He said, "Hey, I want you to look at this." I said, "Look, man, if you like it, I like it." He said, "No, I want you to see it." And I think we're going to get into that. But, getting other people's feedback is one of the traits that will lead to humility. And if I walked in here and Philip's like, "Hey, I know and he knows that he's better at this stuff than I am." If I walked in here and he's like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," boom, I love it. It's just the way it's going to be. That just doesn't, it doesn't, I would have been okay with it.
That bothers me.
I would have said, okay. But, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people, they just don't understand the role that humility plays. And I would go one further and say that a lack of self-awareness of understanding humility and whether or not you have it or experience it, I think that goes to show the type of person you are.
I know where I lack humility,
Talk to me.
but I catch myself. So I know it's there, so I've been better at it.
So where do you lack humility?
I think not being happy with what I have and comparing it to what other people do have. The whole it must be nice they got this or they're doing that. I'm like, well, hey, Philip, there's people that would kill to have what I have. It goes both ways. There are people who look at me and probably like, man, I'd love to have what Philip has or what he's doing or this and that. But I don't see it as much because I'm looking like they are at somebody else.
Yeah. Humility, envy, self-esteem, they all kind of get rolled into one, and we'll talk through some of those. But that's a big problem. The big problem is we want to portray ourselves as somebody that has all these things that people want to be like. And when you watch someone from a distance, it's easy to get wrapped up in that envy or that, that wanting to have what they have. But the reality is, again, we've talked about it, that's their highlight reel. That's their,
It's the 20%, 10% good stuff. They don't see the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if we want to play that game of where we struggle with humility, I think for me, it's probably, I'm getting better, but relationship wise, I always seem to think that I am the one that needs to make all the decisions. I'm the one that can only make the right decision for my family or relationship with my wife. She might not think I'm getting better at that, but I really am. So I think again, doing a self-assessment, we'll get into this a little bit later, but that's a big part of this. So let's talk about what humility is defined as. Humility is defined as a modest or low view of one's importance. Now, C.S. Lewis had a much better, I don't know if I'd call it a definition, but C.S. Lewis put it as true humility is not thinking less of yourself, because that's what it sounds like, a modest or low view of one's importance.
Yeah, it's almost sound like, oh, I'm not important at all.
What C.S. Lewis said is true humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So you don't have a self-esteem issue, you just don't think of yourself first, you think of other people first. You think of, other people's abilities versus your own. It isn't denying our accomplishments. It's just detaching from their significance. So we recognize that, Philip's really good at anything media photography related. He's a very artistic human being. He's not saying that he's not. He's just not out there, putting that on everybody else, saying, "Hey, look at how great I am." I saw a great quote. I'm going to jump ahead. Walter Payton said, "When you're good at something, you'll tell everybody.
Yeah.
When you're great at something, they'll tell you."
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me, because I always, no matter who it is I meet in my life, whether it's business, whether it was in the Marine Corps, whatever, if I met somebody and they lead with how great they are or what they've done and accomplishments, I immediately just want to, I want the old Heisman, because I don't want to hear about that, If that's what you're leading with, then to me, you're going to be missing some other things. It's understanding that we have both strengths and weaknesses. Now, you may have a ton of strengths. You may be really, really good at what we do or what our job is, but I guarantee you have weaknesses. And when you lose that humility piece, you lose the humbleness, you start to overlook those weaknesses and think that you are now superior at everything to everybody else. It steals our ability to empathize with people. And I think that's a big, big piece of this. Having empathy is being able to relate to other people and their feelings. This is, surprisingly enough, maybe something I struggle with at times.
Okay. Like when you called me a bad planner earlier today. It's good. We won't get into that. But I understand what you're saying. Keep going.
Being able to empathize means you're taking into account other people's emotions, other people's feelings. And I've just never been a big feelings guy.
I think a lot of people have trouble with that.
Yeah.
Like just in general, because when it's you or somebody else, most people's going to be like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
That's what we see all the time. Social media, news, whatever. It's either my way or you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's one way or the other.
Yeah. And I've seen it on both ends of the spectrum in sports, in the military, in business. I have a feeling I'll spend most of the time today talking about the military, because that's where I think that the greatest adaptation to humility took place for me. But we'll start with sports. In sports, people confuse confidence with humility, and they say, "Oh, you can't be confident and be humble." You can. It's tricky.
Yeah,
it's tricky. The problem is most people we see in sports have no humility and are overconfident and are overcompensating for their weaknesses.
Yeah. They showboat a lot. They talk trash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without confidence, you have low self-esteem. And without humility, you become arrogant. You're trying to find the balance between, confidence and humility. And right in the middle is where you want to be, where everything intersects. If you were to draw those two circles, where they intersect is what you want.
What's that called? The Venn diagram or something like that?
Venn diagram?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually don't know. I said
Sounds
yes.
like a Venn diagram.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You learned something today.
I did. I should have paid attention.
Okay.
I didn't learn a lot. I actually I made the mistake of telling my 13-year-old, and as I think this through yesterday, this is I think I made a fairly large mistake as a parent.
What did you do?
I told my 13-year-old Reagan that the only thing I learned in school, in high school, like grades K through 12,
Yeah.
that I still use today is typing. That's
What?
it. That's the only skill.
Are you sure?
That's it. I'm telling you, it was called best keyboarding.
I remember that.
And for some reason, I guess I don't need that.
Yeah, we'll cut that.
For some reason, I just really enjoyed, they had like a dumb it was a competitive game that you played.
That's why you like having those typing contests.
Well,
who can type the most in the minute? That's why you like those.
Yes.
You can get like 100 words in 30 seconds.
I just remember, everyone else was like messing around, not playing the games, and I was just digging in those games, trying to get as many as I could. And that's honest to goodness. If I think back of what skill set I use right now from grade school, it is typing. It's the ability to respond in an email quickly, or type my thoughts out quickly.
It relates a lot to your job now, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I told my 13-year-old that.
Basically, you told your daughter that nothing's good about school except typing.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
Anyway, I was explaining to her that it's important to me what your grades are. I want you to have good grades, but don't tie your happiness to your grades, because it just doesn't matter. And then I realized how that sounded.
Great.
So we find that balance, and confidence is about liking who you are. Arrogance is expecting everybody else to like who you are. Yeah. And you can't have that expectation. If someone else's, they're going to make that decision for themselves. And, when I look at sports, it can't be fun to play with people that aren't humble. I look at working out, doing CrossFit with the guys we train with. I would not train with the people that we do if they weren't humble. Yeah. And if you look around the gym,
that'd be just a miserable.
Well, think about the community. How lucky we are. There's actually, as I sit here and think about it, I can't think of one person that is super arrogant that comes in here that isn't humble. That's why it's
usually
so
when
fun.
Those people come in, you know who it is, and they don't last. They get weeded out pretty quick.
Yeah. They're the guys that when I see them on the top of the board in the old days, I'd be like, okay, we're all going to do this. Yeah. And then we're going to get a couple girls to do it with us, and we're going to beat everybody, you know? But, you look at guys like, great athletes like Ben DeSalle. He comes in here. He's never once ran his mouth about how strong he is, how good how good he is.
They'll have fun in class, like him and Besser and stuff. People go, that's just regular, whatever, having fun. Yep. He's never talked about I'm the strongest, I'm the whatever, ever.
And you get people that I think one of the ways you can show this humility is to make fun of yourself. And I've done that my whole life. I always enjoy making fun of myself. I just like that part of it. It's always been funny for me to do that. And I love that so many people here, Milton, Milton's a really good athlete. Yeah. It doesn't matter what workout is, how great he does. He's always got something funny to say about how, he got crushed in the workout.
He told me about his whoop or something the other day. He's like, we line all our whoops up, shows our heart rate. Everybody's like, oh, this guy, 72, 93, 106, Milton. Mine don't even have a number. It just says you are fat. I'm like, Milton, you're okay, man. Yeah. He's like, all I was doing was getting my plates out for the workout. We haven't even started yet.
And that's what, that's the fun part is when you can surround yourself with people that are like that. That makes things fun. And I saw this about a year ago. I saw the comparison between Ray Lewis and London Fletcher. You being a big sports guy,
Lewis.
Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I know that. He's a football player. I know him. Yeah. I don't know the other guy.
Okay. They played linebacker.
Okay.
And Ray Lewis, are you familiar with kind of how his persona was?
Not really, but I remember he opened up a bunch of barbershops and then they closed or something. I remember that.
Okay, well, that's really has nothing to do with this story, but thank you for
that's how I know him.
If you're looking for a haircut, just check out Ray Lewis.
Lewis's Cuts 52 was the name of it.
Okay.
Was that his number?
That was his number.
That's why I was, I knew it. See?
Very good.
Cuts
very
52.
Good. Yep. So Ray Lewis, when they did the starting lineups, he'd come out and he'd dance, and he would do this dance that everybody would know, and he was very outspoken, and he would celebrate and yell and scream and holler. I don't dislike Ray Lewis. That's not what I'm saying, but I don't think he was very humble, and that's okay. That was maybe what worked for him. But London Fletcher, on the other hand, you heard very little from. He was a linebacker for the Redskins, and they had a side-by-side comparison of their careers. And when people talk about linebackers, Ray Lewis is at the top of the list. London Fletcher is lost in translation. You don't even hear about his name. Well, Ray Lewis played 17 years in the league. London Fletcher played 16 years in the league. Middle linebacker is probably one of the hardest positions to stay healthy with, other than like a running back,
getting beat up all the time.
quarterback. You're getting hit every single play. So, one way you measure your significance is how many games are you missing? Ray Lewis missed 44 games over 17 seasons. It's not terrible. It's really not. How many games do you think London Fletcher missed?
I have no clue.
0.
What?
Never missed a game. 0. Look it up.
Gosh.
Fact check me. It's 0. That is incredible. As soon as I saw that,
It's like working somewhere for 16 years. You never had a day off. Ever.
In the most physically demanding job on the planet.
Yeah, and that one. Yeah.
So that right there, when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, I wonder what else was close. So they're within 1% of each other in tackles. 1%. So basically identical. They have the same number of forced fumbles, 19, within 2 sacks of each other in their career. Ray Lewis went to 13 Pro Bowls. London Fletcher went to 4. Ray Lewis is a Hall of Famer. London Fletcher's not. But London Fletcher didn't dance around and celebrate. Nope. Didn't talk about how great he was. He never found himself in any trouble. He did his job day in and day out and did it at a
Kept
very
his head
high
down
level.
and just did his.
So I can see why, if you're a young kid and you're watching and you're like, man, I want to be like Ray Lewis, because what do I get by being like London Fletcher? The difference.
Nobody even knows who I am really,
Yeah.
and he was in the Hall
So
of Fame.
I understand that the predicament these kids are put at, but they just need to get educated and say that people need to educate them on, there's a life after football, and you might be able to get away with that in football, but once you get into business and once you get around other people, for the most part, people don't want to be around arrogant people. So that was a kind of an eye opener when I saw that. When you look at the military, the Marine Corps was extremely proficient at fixing humility. The first few weeks of your training made it very clear that we knew nothing about the world we thought we were living in. It was
Just
a
break
new
you
world.
down, right?
Oh, they find whatever crack they can, and they keep chiseling until something breaks.
Go back to the Quigley episode where you said they finally found you. What was your thing? That was the food,
It was
right?
the food.
Yeah.
Yep. And that wasn't more of a, that wasn't humility for me. That was just more of a weakness.
Yeah.
I started referring to it in the Marine Corps as humble pie. So whenever you'd get humbled, you'd be like, man, another piece of humble pie. And I ate a lot of humble pie. And the Marine Corps would find something that you thought you were good at, and maybe they didn't even sense that you had an ego with it or you had overconfidence with it, but they just knew you were good at it. They wanted to make you understand that there were a lot of people that were good at those things. So if it was a endurance test, there was like a what they called the endurance course. Maybe that night before you do that E-course, you'd find yourself on fire watch at the worst hours of the night, so you'd get broken sleep, or they'd make you redo your name tapes where you gotta stencil your name on the back on your uniform. So they'd say, "Oh, hey, Pinkerton, redo your name tags on every one of your uniforms."
Everyone.
So you're like, okay, and you're coloring it in. You got like a stencil that you make with, and of course Pinkerton. If
That
only
takes
I
a
had
while,
the name
right?
Lewis,
Yeah,
it'd be a little easier.
Well, mine used to be
Pinkerton, you're like,
Troutman. So
oh wow,
Fishman,
okay.
remember that?
Fishman. So and you'd find yourself doing that, and then it would just happen to be that morning before the E-course, you wouldn't have enough time to eat. So now you're going to the E-course, something that you excel at, and you're starving and you're tired, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's my piece of humble pie. I just came in last place.
I think that's why CrossFit works so well. First CrossFit workout I ever did was a trial class. I think it was with JB. It was me and another lady. this lady, she was pregnant. She wasn't pregnant like, oh, I just found out. She was like about to have the baby pregnant. And I think she lapped me twice in whatever workout JB put us through. I signed up like that day. I don't think that lady ever signed up, but it was, I come in there with like somewhat of an ego. I was like, I lift weights. Really active at work. I was like, this ain't nothing.
Yeah.
She lapped me twice. And she asked me if I was okay at the end. I was like, to this day, I thought he had her put on one of those suits to pretend she was pregnant to get members.
I think that's great. You know, I think that's a great distinguisher between who you want to have part of your facility or not. You know, can someone handle getting beat by 7-month-old Ginny Moore? I don't know. You know, do I feel good about myself when I go home at night and Jess is 9 months pregnant and she asked me what my score was and asked me if I was okay and why, you know? Yeah. No, that's not fun for me. No. But it makes it pretty easy.
Keeps you in check.
Yeah. You know, so in business, humility became even more important because now, you know, I was surrounded by these people all day long, and I really wanted to make sure that the culture that we created at Vitality was one of humility. And, you know, when I'd see outside the walls of Vitality, there was some frustrating spots because there would be mastermind groups or business groups or events that business owners would go to, and all I would hear was how amazing these business owners were. They would tell me about how great their business is doing, whatever, and it was 2 days of self-gratification to where all I want to know was, I don't care about what you're doing right. I want to know what we're doing wrong because that's the things that we can learn from each other. That's what we messed can up fix, on. Yeah. You know? So, and I'm sure I'm sure that I could have found a group like that. I didn't experience a lot of that. So it kind of turned me off to that, you know, that type of scenario. As soon as someone talks about having all the answers, I stop listening because no one's got the answers. You know, I've been doing this for 12 years at Vitality, and I don't know how many 10-year gyms are out there. Maybe 500, 600, I don't know. But what's kept me motivated from day one is always knowing that someone out there is working harder than me, doing it smarter than I am, doing it better than I am, and if I take my foot off the gas, more of those guys are going to pass me by. More of those guys are going to end up doing better than I am. And I think that fear of people passing and catching me is what has kept me humble all this time. Is every time you just give yourself a little bit of leeway, and you're like, man, maybe I do have this thing figured out. Boom! I promise you. I hope you're hungry because humble pie is coming. And
think you're having a good. Everything's going smooth. You're going on vacation. Gym floods.
Yeah.
Random things, you know. Oh, humble pie.
Driving to the airport, and I get Aggie FaceTiming me, and he's standing 3 inches of water in the gym. I haven't been gone in a year and a half.
Yep.
The first day that I leave, he's like, "Don't worry, I got you."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay." All right. Yep. As the water's pouring through the doors.
Enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. Have a good trip.
Just relax. That's what I was talking about earlier. A lot of people don't see that side of stuff. They'll look at you and be like, "Oh, he's got the gym. He's got this, that." Like they don't see that the gym flooded. You had to get it fixed. They don't see the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. It's always gravy on top, but what they don't understand is, it wasn't always like that. And before I had you, think about it. I was out there taking pictures with my iPhone, editing myself.
Old Boost mobile phone, man. The old -6 megapixel camera. I don't even know if they have those.
So how do we get better at this? Is it possible? I absolutely think that you can. And, we'll cover 3 or 4 steps, just some action items that you can do. I think the first one is to become a better listener. This was one that I struggled with, especially after the Marine Corps. I wasn't a great listener. It wasn't that I was talking too much. I just didn't really want. I don't know. I didn't want input from other people, and that was a big problem for me. Now we talk too much and listen too little. That's a huge issue. Everybody wants to talk. Everyone wants to hear themselves talk.
My girlfriend tells me that I'm always thinking of a response while she's talking before, like, instead of listening, you know what I'm talking? I'm sure you know that too, right?
Yeah.
So like they're telling you something and you're already thinking of your response, but the rest of what they said, you just don't.
Forgot.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like reading a book and you just read
Are
2
you
pages.
listening or are you coming up? Are you ready to talk already? Are
Yeah.
you ready to answer? I'm like,
Yep. The other one's be coachable. You know, being coachable is really important. You know, nobody wants somebody that's not coachable. I can't stand it when I tell somebody or I correct somebody or I try and coach somebody or I'm trying to, talk to my daughters and the first thing out of their mouth after I tell them is, I know. No, you don't know. No. If you knew, you wouldn't have done it that way.
Or I wouldn't be telling you this.
Yeah, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So that's, again, instead of listening, they're already trying to talk. You know, before, I really hate it when, you know, people talk over each other. You know, let the person finish talking, take a breath, and then speak. It's that simple. When you start talking over and talking onto people, it's like when you had radios in the Marine Corps and you were trying to talk in the radio, and the guy just wouldn't take his finger off the radio to let he wouldn't break. He would just keep talking, and he would take his breaths with it. And it's like, hey, listen, when you're done, take your finger off of it, breathe, and then someone else can chime in and say, whatever. It was crazy.
Like the old Nextels.
Yeah.
Used to have the same problem.
Yeah. Recognize that we don't have all the answers and give people the power to make decisions. You know, a lot of times business owners and managers, they fear the young bucks that are coming up. They fear them having too much power. So they want to keep them arm distance away because they don't want them to look bad. No, the better someone underneath you does, it just means that you've mentored that person, you've developed that person, and you're giving them the opportunity to grow as an individual. That's our goal. That's our goal. That is, humility is allowing someone else to have the spotlight, allowing someone else to make those decisions and learn from the things that you're trying to teach them.
Imagine if you didn't have Aggie or Laura, some of them, like when the gym did flood.
Yeah.
What if it was just you had like a whole new crew? You always hiring new people.
Guess what I would have done?
You'd had to come right back.
Turn around.
You wouldn't have let them just handle that.
And they'll tell you, Aggie, especially Laura, will tell you, I didn't give up power that easily in the beginning, and now I have I'm much more comfortable with that. But that was more on me. It wasn't on their abilities. It was just my comfort level. But
if you think about it, it's not even power really now. Like, you're still in charge. You're the boss.
Yeah.
When it all is said, and like, you're still have the final say. It's just a little bit easier letting them take control, like handle some things that you were trying to do everything at once, or all by yourself.
I agree, and that's something I think a lot of people struggle with. I know I did, and I think most entrepreneurs will. But I promise you, when you do want to leave, you'll realize how well of a job you've done or how poor of a job you've done.
Yeah.
I used to hate leaving. The thought of leaving to me was very difficult. Now I have no issues. I'm going out to Nashville with Marty and Derek in a couple weeks, and I didn't even think twice about it. I put it on the calendar and it's done.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm going to be any more fun while I travel. I still want to be in bed at 8:30 and I want to work out in the mornings, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I don't have any issue leaving because now I'm comfortable 100% with the people that I've got here.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll tell you is, it might sound kind of weird, but have conversations and spend time with people that you don't expect anything in return. And let me explain that. What I mean by that is, I've seen this over the years where people don't want to interact with someone that can't give them something back. There's been people that have come to the gym that have straight up said, hey, I'm here for the connections. I'm here because I want to meet people. And when you do it that way, you're really setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with someone that you don't expect anything in return. And it sounds very easy, but it can be difficult because as we get busier, you don't have the time to maybe go out and do that. But I would argue that that's the ability to empathize. That's the ability to be humble enough that why would we not want to talk to someone? We can learn from anybody.
Yeah.
Every single person on this planet has something that can teach us something. Every single thing. And when we assume that we can't learn something from somebody else,
We're in trouble.
we're in big trouble. When I assume that, hey, you know what? I don't want to talk to Philip because there's really nothing he can do for me. You know, he's a beer guy. What do I know about? I don't need it. You know, I don't drink beer. I don't want to deal with Philip. But the reality is, he's not a beer guy. He is a artist. And if I didn't ever have that conversation, if I didn't ever have that interaction, and if he didn't ask me 74 times for a job,
I'm still asking.
we would have never been where we are now. So I think it's something you got to think about. And it sounds crazy. I think some people are like, I have no idea I've never done that. Just watch yourself. I promise you, you know, you'll treat people differently based on what they can give you in return, you know? So that's my 2 cents on those 4 things that you can do right now. Become a better listener, be coachable, recognize you do not and will not ever have all the answers, and talk to people. Don't have an ulterior motive for every conversation you have. You don't need to get something in return. So those 4 things, if we can implement those 4, I promise you, you will be a more humble person, and more people will want to be around you if you are humble.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't know if you're humble or not, gosh, you might not be.
You might not be.
You know, if you find yourself telling someone how great you are at anything, you know, think about that. We'll close with this. How do you think that would have worked for Spencer when he smacks me around these workouts if he wasn't humble?
Spencer would no longer be with us, and I don't know if he wouldn't be here at the gym. He just wouldn't be with us in general.
That's what's so great about, you know, that's what's so great. You know, obviously I don't care about getting beat. Well, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. But
because it's not going to ruin.
It's not going to ruin my day.
Your business, your just everything.
But
Go
when
home,
you
yell
get
at your
somebody
wife.
that's like, oh, you know, that just isn't humble about it, it just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
So, so when you can surround yourself with people like, you know, we've got at Vitality, I'm very lucky, and I'm fully aware of how fortunate we are, and I hope that you will, you know, make those changes in your circle to make sure you surround yourself with people you want to be around. And one of those traits that you should be looking for is humility in who you hire, who you bring on as clients. That's what you're looking for. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If we are in police jail, YouTube jail, excuse me,
Police jail.
YouTube jail, then you'll listen to the audio version. If you are able to see this on YouTube, then we are cleared hot. We're back.
Yep.
No thanks to Philip. And we look forward to our next episode. But until then, this is the Built by Vitality podcast. Thanks for listening.